Testing 1, 2, 3. All right, we'll get started. Who had the longest commute today? Josh. Right. So I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. This sucks. So I was in DC yesterday. I had an 8 p.m. flight canceled. I had a 10 p.m. flight backup canceled, and then I had a 6 a.m. flight that got me here at 8:30, like me, canceled. Right. So it's one after another. So I eventually got to the 7:30 flight. I'm here. And the worst part, I was driving down kind of, I stuck on with this train track crossing for 20 minutes. So it just like my commute's internal. So I apologize. Now, I know a couple of you commented on my attire, right? They wear the same thing. So I have an excuse today for wearing the same thing every day. But even better, I'd actually planned to wear a blue shirt on the last day of class. It is hanging in my closet at home, which I haven't been to yet. So you're welcome. So you're stuck with yesterday's shirt. All right, that's all I got. Um, I'm actually pleasantly surprised there's so many of you that you'd all just called a day because you didn't have your other class. So again, thank you for people who told me that your tours class was canceled. This made my life very easy. That way, I didn't have to stay till 5 p.m. So again, I would not want to miss the last day of class. Let's say goodbye. I won't see you ever again. It's true. I probably will see you at graduation, but it might be a while. That's just the way this job works. Okay. So my goal for today is to walk through the first question from the final from last year. And you were supposed to have taken at least most of it last Thursday, which was like a lifetime ago in class, and finished it on your own. I won't ask if you did. Maybe you did. Maybe you didn't. I don't know. Since it's your business, okay? I want you to ask me every question you have, things you have both in this exam, things that are maybe not clear in your notes, etc. I will also make office today for as long as you need, so that will be useful. I do keep a cutoff though on questions, and I'll explain why I have a cutoff in a moment. Let me just make sure at my calendar because I can't remember what date, what date is anymore. Okay, today's Tuesday, right? Your exam. Don't laugh. I'm actually glad. So I had a 3:30 a.m. wake up call, and that's Eastern time. And about 5 minutes before I went to sleep, I got the text that my flight was canceled. Had I not stayed up a little bit later than I should have, I just slept for bed. So your exam is on May 4th, right? That's a Wednesday. You have an exam also on Monday evening or Monday, what time? Monday morning. All right. So, let's say you're not gonna like this. 9 a.m. by Tuesday the 3rd for questions. Okay. So that at least gives me a full 24 hours to give you comments. Is that fair? All right. So I'll just say the cutoff for exam questions, 9 a.m. and that's by email or whatever. But that's 9 a.m. Monday the 3rd. I'll tell you why I put a question cutoff. First off, when I get questions the day of the exam, they're born in complete panic, right? They're absolutely panicked, and they usually don't help. No, she's laughing. But more often, the questions are reflecting that something went wrong in your prep that should have been fixed weeks earlier. And I'm not a magician, right? I can't just wave a magic wand and beam knowledge into your brain. I don't have that skill. So I'll just say if you have any questions by email, 9 a.m. the day before, I think that's fair. But I can't promise if it's can you explain this future interest thing to me? What are these remainders, right? I'm gonna be like, okay, you're done, right? Go sit for the exam and just take what's coming to you because at this point it's too late. I've not written the exam yet deliberately. I don't write it till after this review session because I'm a really bad liar. One semester I tried, and this jerk student sitting right there, not in the right. I'm sorry, but he was sitting where you're sitting. He was saying, "So, Professor Blackman, is X topic in the exam?" And I'm like, and I can't lie for crap. So and he was like, and so he basically pried questions out of me. So I'm never gonna do that because I can't lie. I don't have it in me. It's just I can never play cards. So it'd just be a very bad. It'd be a very bad thing. But anyway, so I haven't written it yet. I don't know what the exam's about. So you ask me, I don't know. I'll write tomorrow or the day after. That's gonna be written in the next couple of days. Okay. All right, fair? Okay, let's get started then. All right, so this is the exam which I think you all taken a look at last week from the May of 2021. This was my second, I guess my third Zoom semester, as it were. Um, the format has not changed. So you have 3 hours. The exam is meant to take 3 hours. If you find yourself leaving very early, you are either a genius or you did something wrong or you missed something. But it's designed to take about 3 hours. So I don't encourage you to leave early. There are the two questions, right? Each worth 50%, which means put roughly the same amount of time into each question. If you spend 2 hours on question number one and only an hour on the second part, you've just shortchanged yourself, right? You basically left points on the table. They're worth the same amount of time. So my encouragement to you is when you hit the 90-minute mark, right? Starts exam at 9 o'clock. I can't remember. Okay, so when you get to 10:30, go to question two. If you're not done with question one, just stop wherever you are and go to question two. The reason why, if you're struggling with question one, guess what? You're going to struggle with question two also. They're about the same level of difficulty, right? It's not going to be magically, wow, question two is going to be easier. In fact, it'll be harder because you're burned out and you're tired and you're not looking at it fresh. So at 10:30 a.m., just cut it off, go to the next question, and just stop wherever you are mid-sentence. You don't want to deal with leaving stuff blank. In fact, I can tell when a student ran out of time because question five in the last part's blank, or there's like a sentence where they just wrote some throwaway, they just wrote something just to just put points in on the paper. So stop at the 90-minute mark. Okay. The word limit, we've talked about this before. The word limit's designed to be an equalizer, right? Some of you can write really fast, others can't. Some of you want to just dump everything you have in your notes, and that's not a very good way of putting an exam. I analogize to taking a bucket of spaghetti, throwing it at the wall and hoping something that sticks, right? That's not my exam. Each of the two parts is 1,000 words. That means roughly each of the five subparts is 200 words each. Keep to that. On the midterm, a lot of you took the animal hunting question, like 600 words for it. That's a disaster. Don't do that. Because what end up happening is you want to run up room for questions 4 and 5. And I stopped reading at 1,000 words. The software gives me a word count. I just stop reading. You don't want to be in a position where I stop reading, because then you just get zeros at those questions. The other part is if you spend all of your time writing and you have your limit, you'll have to start deleting. And let me tell you something, you do not want to be deleting under pressure because you don't know what to delete. You might delete the good stuff and leave the bad stuff in, right? So discipline yourself. When you're practicing, practice writing about 200 words. That's 5 or 6 sentences, roughly. I mean, you'll get a feel for what 200 words looks like, but just discipline yourself, because the worst thing in the world is either you go over the limit, because then they give you a 0, or you randomly delete stuff, in which case you actually delete the right answer because you forget what the right answer was, and then you get lose points. So I can tell, if I'm an archaeologist, I can just look at the exam and figure out, this person ran out of time. I knew it. Okay. Again, there's word count in the software. It's not obvious. I encourage you to take a sample exam. They give you a sample exam so you can try, right? Just trust me. Take 5 minutes and do it. There's a little document icon, looks like a piece of paper. If you click that, it's the word count. Okay. What's misleading, though, is it generates also a character count. Don't laugh. Do not write 1,000 characters. You know what that is? 1,000 letters. A couple years ago, I'm not joking you, a student on the midterm wrote 1,000 characters because she panicked. And she used the character count teacher. She deleted her entire exam. 1,000 characters, like 5 text messages, right? It's like a couple tweets. I'm warning you. One of you might do it, and I don't say you weren't warned. So just don't do this. Again, exams, 100% open book. It will not help you, right? Again, if you see yourself flipping through your pages on your exam, you're gonna run out of time. Right? I don't actually proctor, but if I was ever actually the proctor, so it's actually a hard question. The reason why we don't proctor is actually to ensure blind grading, right? Because if I see a student doing something unusual on the exam, and I see that when I'm grading later, it betrays blind. So we're actually not even allowed in the room. So that's why I'm not there. But were I be in the room and I see someone feverishly flipping through notes, I'm like, yeah, they're not going to finish. So your notes are helpful, but the notes are really just a tool by which you prepare for the exam. The actual exam day, once you get the game day, you don't look into playbook, right? You gotta execute. There's a 2-minute drill, as I would say. You have to be ready to execute. All right. All right. You'll not have the exam on paper. This is actually a point of some consternation. The exam will be on the screen. For my exam, it's not that bad because it's essay, but for other exams, we have to draw diagrams and things, whatever. But you can have scratch paper, right? So bring scratch paper if you want to draw things out, especially with the feature interest, you want to map stuff out. That's helpful. But you'll not have it on paper. I can do an entire hour discussion why that's the case. It's policy and whatever, but so you want to have paper. Sometimes I'll say do part 1 first and part 2 second. I don't always do that, but just make sure if I say that, do it in that order, because there might be some facts in part 2 that are based on what happened in part 1. So you have to sort of keep it in mind. So don't do them out of order unless I tell you to do that. All right. You're gonna have the sort of the virtual proctor, and I have such mixed thoughts on the virtual proctor. So the upshot is the human proctors are not very good. They're not very effective because they don't pay attention to everyone. They can't catch all the cheating. The downside is the AI is not very good either. So I am truly mixed. So there'll be a human being in the room, as I hope there is, and there'll be the little camera proctor. I don't think any of you are dumb enough to cheat. I hope you're not. Uh, you hear rumors of people cheating, and let me tell you, most of the rumors are false because people are not willing to risk their lives and careers over a couple points in a property exam. You'll be expelled. All right, it's you're done. Whatever work you've done today just is whoop, gone. But more of a, you can't cheat on my exam. It's all essay, right? 1 year, the closest I came was I found 2 students who had very similar answers, and I investigated. It turned out they actually pre-wrote answers to questions of mine. They weren't even very good, right? And they weren't responsive to my question, which was just. Of course, if you're writing an answer before you get the exam, you're not going to be answering my question, right? But they actually took time. I don't know why, those are study groups, to pre-write answers because they thought they knew I was going to ask, and they apparently didn't. And that's why they were really similar. They weren't identical, but I figured out, okay, so there's no malfeasance here. So I do investigate if I see abnormalities, but it's really hard to cheat in my exam. Is that a question? You're just scratching. Okay, good. Right. Even on the Zoom semester, I saw evidence of cheating, even though people were in their houses. So whatever. Okay. But you'll all be here in the building. All right. So let's begin. Hello. All right. And again, yeah, I'm sorry if you're on Zoom land. Hello. I didn't turn on Zoom. Let me turn on Zoom now. I am so disheveled. I've just it's been a really long day. This is section B. Update required. Oh, come on, Zoom. All right, whatever. I'll do any updates. Okay. So let's start. Question number part 1, 50%. Read the instructions carefully. But YouTube is running, so this is on YouTube, so don't worry about it. Give you information in the instructions that will help you decide if the question's right or wrong. If you don't read the instructions, you're going to lose stuff. So it begins. Your law clerk, the Chief Justice of the Greek Supreme Court. This was a Greek mythology theme. I think I watched the movie Hercules somewhat recently. The Disney cartoon version, not the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger, which was not very good. So your law clerk for the Chief Justice of the Greek Supreme Court. Several disputes arose from 2 Greek states. All right, so that's telling you there are 2 different jurisdictions with 2 different sets of rules. And so pay very close attention to that fact. So first we have the state of Olympus, like Mount Olympus, if you will, which follows all the common law property rules. And second, the state of the underworld, that is hell, Hades, right, follows all modern property rules. And I've asked you to write a memorandum of no more than 1,000 words addressing the following 5 issues. I would encourage you, after you read the instructions, to read through the exam straight through once, start to finish. And the reason why is that sometimes in question 3 or 4, I might give you a hint of how to answer question 2. I don't always do it, but there might be something in a later question that sort of directs your thinking. So don't leave those points on the table. Just do yourself a favor and read the exam straight through. Doing so also gives you kind of like a mental check of, okay, I got an animal question, I got a future interest question, I got a lost property question. So you mentally sort of prioritize what you have to do. Do them in order, but you at least give yourself a mental check of what's ahead of you. I wouldn't just read question 1 and start writing. And another element is, let's say you have a weakness, right? Let's say that the topic of leaseholds is just a weakness for you. You might skip that question and come back to it later. Work on your, let's say you understand future interest, you nail them, right? You can skip if you're worried. Now, if you're like an A+ student, you're just going to blow through them all, right? But if you have weak spots, play to your strengths. Get your points where you can. Don't In other words, if you're not confident in how to answer a question, don't blow all of your time in that one because you're not gonna get many points for it anyway. All right, then that's just general advice, but I hope that that's a little bit helpful for you. Okay. All right, so let's go through this, please. Question number 1. In Greece, the states of Olympus and Underworld border each other. Okay, so we have bordering properties. The two states are separated by the river Styx. Indeed, if you remember Greek mythology, the river Styx was actually the river that connected the world of the living to the world of the dead, and that's how the dead went to the afterworld. Okay, all right. Neither state controls the liver, not the liver. The really tired. The river, as it were. Okay. Hercules, the Greek god, wants to capture the mythical Pegasus. And I tell you, even if you don't know the facts, I tell you everything you need to know. Pegasus is a horse with wings that can fly. So this tells you have an animal that not only can run but also can fly, which makes things a little different than you've done before. Hercules is standing on the banks of the river on the Olympus side. He sees the Pegasus in the river. Okay. Then the Pegasus begins to, I'm sorry, he sees the Pegasus in the river, and we learn that Dante is riding his boat in the river. Of course, Dante is a reference to Hades, right? The king of the underworld. I didn't choose Hades because I don't like having two people the same HH. It just creates confusion, so I picked a different name. All right. At the time, Dante's riding his boat. Okay, Dante's the king of the underworld. Pegasus starts to run away. Now Hercules starts doing some labor. He throws a lasso that snares the Pegasus's leg. The Pegasus falls and is about to drown. Right? So just pause right there. Is that act of capturing his legs and sort of putting him down enough to deprive the Pegasus of his natural liberty? And do you think of the majority in Pearson or the Pearson dissent? I can go either way in this one. That's a pretty significant deprivation of liberty that you're about to drown. But then in the next sentence, of course, it gets magical, and the horse sprouts some wings and flies away. And this is kind of crazy to think about, but the horse is flying through the air with Hercules hanging on for dear life. So, I mean, this is actually a curious question. I don't have a good answer. Is Hercules pursuing the beast, or is the beast dragging him along? Right? Who's chasing whom at this point? Right? Because Hercules is not in control. He's just flailing around like on this long rope. All right. Then we learn that the Pegasus flies over the underworld. Okay. And we know that Dante is the king of the underworld. The Pegasus's leg drags along the sand. Is there a trespass? Right? Can this magical beast just trespass onto this property? But we're not really worried about the trespass. We're worried about what we might call rationing solely, right? When you have a wild fugitive resource, we usually think if it's on the land, of the what do you call it? If it's on the land of the someone who owns the property, there's a chair day. Or if it's on the land of someone who owns a property, it belongs to the owner of that property. Okay. Does rationing solely apply to the sky? We haven't done a case squarely like that, but I think the answer would probably be yes. The closest case we have is actually Keeble, which involved the ducks flying over the pond. Remember the duck decoy, the trap. But I think generally, if you have surface rights, you have the air rights as well. I think that would actually work in both ways. Okay, next we learn the Pegasus flies high, too close to the sun. If you got the reference of Icarus flying too close to the sun. Someone? Anyone? Yes, okay, good. A couple of you know what I'm talking about. The air becomes thin, and he dies of a heart attack. Did Hercules cause that death? I think you can answer this question maybe in one of two ways. Right. On the one hand, Pegasus flew high to try and escape Hercules. That was his escape. He was trying to escape from Hercules. So the reason why he was leaving that spot was because of the pursuit. But on the other hand, Hercules didn't actually take the action that killed him. He didn't strike the fatal blow, so to speak. This is a really weird case where the where the animal didn't die from either hunter. It died from natural causes, right? Yeah, Shadi. Oh, that's creative. I didn't think about that. That's actually really creative. Yeah, you could argue that. Yeah, yeah, I didn't think about that. It's funny when I write these fact patterns are so messed up. I don't always think of all the various ways you can answer them. And every year, a couple people write something like, "Wow, that's creative. That's a good answer. I didn't think about that." So yeah, good job. All right. So, but I'll say it this way: neither hunter directly killed it. Maybe like you can imagine a different question where someone is chasing a fox and he grabs onto the fox's tail and he's basically hanging on, by the tail, and the fox can't, of course, pull a grown man, so he just dies of exertion, right? That might be an analogy to Pearson. I haven't thought about that one. All right, but eventually the horse dies. The Pegasus dies from sort of natural causes, or maybe natural causes abetted by the weight of the hunter. Now the animal's dead and it's free falling, right? um, is this still a fugitive resource? Right. The idea of a fugitive resource is you control your movement, right? You go this way, you go this way, but you're just a dead object falling, right? I don't think you're fugitive anymore. It's sort of like the baseball from Popov. Even though in Popov, a couple of you were bothered by this, they treated the baseball as a fugitive resource. Uh, you're basically just you're inanimate. You're just falling. It's wherever the wind, gravity takes you. That's where you're going to fall. It's not a physics question, but I think Popov would be a relevant precedent to talk about here. Okay, then we see that Dante pilots the boat, so he's right perfectly underneath where the Pegasus is falling. Dante was not involved in the hunt, but he invested at least a little bit of labor by piloting his boat. But it's more that he was lucky, right? He was in the right place at the right time. Finally, we see that the Pegasus crashes into Dante's boat. At that point, the beast is already dead. But the case isn't over yet, right? Because the boat stopped the momentum of the Pegasus, kind of like Popov's glove, if you think of the Popov case. But Dante himself never touched the beast. So at least in Popov, right? Um, Popov's glove touched the baseball. But here, the guy's boat touched it. Would you think of a boat as like a tool to capture? A baseball mitt is something you capture a ball in, but as a boat, something you capture a horse in. It's kind of crazy, right? But then the damn thing bounces off the deck of the boat. This question, I had fun writing this one, right? But the thing bounces off the boat and he falls into the river. And we said earlier that neither jurisdiction owns the river because rivers are considered kind of like owned by no one, or owned for the public trust, more precisely. Um, so the boat had control like the glove and then lost it a moment later. Then Hercules jumps in the river and he grabs a dead animal and he swims away with it. So I see here Hercules kind of like Hayashi, right, where they had this entire massive thing and he came in, but still, unlike Hayashi, Hercules did all this work at the outset to try and corner the boat and to try to corner the horse and capture it. And then he skins the horse, and then they try to sue for quiet. When I say quiet title, they're just asking the court who owns it, right? Who has the interest in the horse? That's all I'm asking you. All right. So that was a lot of facts, and you could write so many different directions. I think I hit all the points I want to talk about. What is on all of your minds? What do you think about this first question? Yeah, Abby, then Shadi, then Beck.
When we're answering this, is it best to just kind of argue what we think is the strongest argument? Because trying to touch on all those things.
Impossible. And nor do I expect you to spot every issue I just said, right? I mean, I might write a question where there might be 10 issues, and maybe students get 3 or 4 of them, right? I don't think, did anyone get all the issues I just mentioned? Maybe like a wonder student in my midst, but I'm not ready for that. So think what you think are the strongest answers. A good rule of thumb is 3, 4, 5. Those are about 3 or 4, 5 issues. That's usually what I'm trying to get at, but you're not gonna get all 10. Yeah, Shadi? Well, I think that's like more like Genvi Rich, the whale case, right? A little bit, because if the iron holds, so you think of like whether the iron holds. But the tricky part with Genvi Rich is that that was a case based on custom, and I didn't give you any facts discussing what the custom might be for hunting Pegasus. I mean, I don't know, I made it up, right? But just be careful to say, oh, this is like Genvi Rich, but you recall Genvi Rich wasn't really a labor case; it was a case based on custom. So don't be too quick to cite cases that aren't really relevant. It's a risk. Yeah, Zach. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's what when Shadi asked about the line holding, right? Which is, I think a couple people put that last year. But here we're in the land of labor, we're not in the land of custom. So Gendry is a tricky case to bring in, I think. All right. What else? Question mark? Yes, Tatiana. That would be nice. So, I mean, this is a good rule of thumb. Answer the damn question. And that's, I didn't mean to see, but to everyone. So if the question is, how should the court resolve the dispute? Somewhere in your answer, the sentence should be, the court should award the thing to Hercules, right? Or the court should award the thing to Dante, right? That sentence shows me that you're answering the damn question. The biggest reason, and I'll repeat this on blue in the face, the reason why people lose points is they don't answer the question. This is why those two kids who pre-wrote their answers lost points, right? Because they weren't answering the question I posed. They were answering some like related issue that, oh yeah, this question looks like what we prepared in advance. So yeah, don't pre-write answers. People do it. It's a waste of time, and you're probably going to write something that's non-responsive. I was like, hey, come on, if you're going to cheat, actually, answer the question. Yes, 1, 2, yeah. Well, again, the courts have to resolve cases, right? There's a plaintiff, there's a defendant. One of them's got to win, and one's got to lose, unless you like say you cut the thing in half, which I guess you can do, right? Because the skin, I suppose you can slice the skin in half. So unless your answer is you slice the skin in half, it's H wins or D wins. One of them got to win. Make I write these questions to go either way. I don't have a single right answer in mind. I never do. I deliberately write the questions where so many twists and turns you can cut either way. Yes, Alex. Labor theory, what? Oh, that it was unfair from taking in the first place. Yeah, I think I mentioned labor briefly. I should probably talk more, but absolutely, Hercules did a lot of work. I mean, he was dangling by the rope. I mean, there's a lot of effort put into it. And unlike in Pearson v. Post, we have no idea what Pearson actually did. I'm sorry, what Post actually did. Here we have very good detail. So I think that's a fair point on labor theory. And you can talk about Locke, right? You can talk about Barbarack and other guys. Feel free to mention all these dead philosophers. They're good to mention whenever you can. They're relevant. What else is number one? I'm actually very happy to see all of you. I did a review a couple of years ago. There were like 2 people showed up. I was so mad. Because I said, "Oh, we're recording it." 2 people showed up. I was actually pretty pissed. I was not happy. Yes, yes. So, maybe what Pierre said. You want to exterminate them? Yeah. I have no idea. I mean, I have no idea what the policy of the Greeks were towards hunting Pegasus. I have no idea. So I mean, I see. I know what you're getting at, and I have no idea. I don't want to answer your question. I'm not sure. I made this up. I don't know. Yes, I mean. If if you have space, we can argue. Policy is good. Again, I don't know what the answer to that policy question is, but if you can work in policy saying, the law should create incentives for the hunting of the Pegasus, you're making up facts, not an evidence. So I would encourage you not to make up facts I don't give you because I just have no idea if they're right. But as a general matter, if you want to say, let's say it was not about hunting Pegasus, hunting rats or something, right? The law should encourage hunting of rats because these rats are vermin and they spread disease and whatever else rats do. Yeah, Jackie.
What do you think about arguing people and saying that Hercules was doing a violent or malicious act interfering with Dante's profession of being king of the underworld, securing dead animals, or is that inventing a fact?
You're really close to inventing facts. So you think because they're dead, he was collecting the dead for the souls on the river Styx?
I was thinking that Dante was positioning his boat to secure the dead.
That's a brilliant answer. I would actually give credit for that. That's good. Because of the king of the underworld. That's really good. Yeah. Yeah, I guess Dante Hades would do that for the River Styx. Good job. Yeah. Creative. Creative. Yeah. Every year I'm like, wow, that's good. I didn't think of that. That's creative. All right, good job. What else? Number one. Are we good? Number one. Can we move on to the second one? Okay, so move on. The second question is based on two other. I don't know. I was thinking of Greek mythology last year, so I was stuck in my house or something. I don't know. Um, two other Greek myths. The first was that when Hercules killed the Hydra, the many-headed the many-headed serpent, with arrows dipped in the Hydra's blood. There's another one of it's pronounced Persephone, I believe, who was the wife of Hades or Dante, and she had these pomegranate seeds in the underworld, and she was cursed to spend 6 months every year as punishment. And you guys do Greek mythology in school, in middle school? I did this. I remember all the Greek gods. I remember the Greek alphabet. All that stuff is fun. It came in mind where all the stupid COVID variants, alpha, beta, gamma, delta. We skipped chi, the chi. We skipped that one. We didn't have a chi variant. Can't have that. No, no, no. We don't talk about chi. Okay. Went right to Omicron. Skipped a couple letters. Okay. President of China. That's what I'm getting at. Oh, probably going to shut me down. Okay. Save me, Elon. Okay. Last day of class. This is a true story. So when I took torts as a 1L, I had this brand new. He was a visiting professor. He was not very good for torts. His first time he's ever teaching. He's not teaching anymore. He's long gone. And it was not a good experience. I don't understand negligence to this day. Just don't even ask me. I can't explain it to you. I just had to fake it for the bar. But on this last day of the exam, we did our evaluations. They were on paper back then. So we did the evaluation. We handed it to him. I swear to God, he said, "All right, now let's do some mother effing torts." The last day of class, I'm like, what? This guy was just a train wreck. It was a disaster. So anyway, I'm not going to say that, but seriously, the evals, he had them in the folder. He's like, all right, let's. Anyway, oh, I think they emailed you the evals. So just do them at some point. I don't really. I read them very carefully, but just do it. No, I do. I read them very carefully once, and then I look at them again. No, because I mean, the most common comment I get from one of those is, "I wish you filled these out after the exam." It's like, okay, I bet you do, right? I bet you do, right? That's the way you can grade us. But anyway, I do read them carefully. I read the comments, but I do take them to heart. But anyway, so you have those with you. But yeah, he's like, let's do some reports. And I was like, again, don't ask me about negligence. I can't explain any of it. It's just I didn't. I got a C+ in torts. You believe that? The worst I ever got in my life. It was not my class, and here I am teaching. What do I know? What do I know? See, there's hope for all of you guys who got C's. There's hope for you all. Hope springs are. All right, question 2. All right, so this is a question about lost, found, mislaid, abandoned, stolen property. All right, so we learn that there's a grove of pomegranate trees near the banks of the River Styx. And if you know what a pomegranate is, it's this very sweet fruit. The seeds are delicious. Dante's been growing those trees for years. Hercules loved the pomegranate fruit, so he hatched up a plan. He had found an arrow floating the River Styx. All right, so now there's an issue of found property, right? And it's found not on the beach, but on the river. And I told you that no one actually owns or has control over the river. We don't know how the arrow got there. Maybe it fell off a boat. Maybe it floated from Olympus. We don't know where it came from. But what we do know is that Hercules is the first finder. And so I think armory versus the lamory, the chimney sweep case is helpful here. And that sets the rule that the finder has the right to keep the item against everyone but the rightful owner. So I think that's sort of the first part. Okay, then we learn that Hercules throws the arrow. He's the god. He throws the arrow with his bare hands across the river. And his plan is he would put a rope, again with the rope, right? Put a rope on the end of this rope, and it would go through this pomegranate, and then he would, pull the rope back across the river. What was his intent with the arrow? Did Hercules intend to abandon the arrow? I don't think so. He intends to recover it. right? So this wasn't like abandoned property. This was mislaid property at most, where he threw it there, intended to come back for a little bit a later point in time. All right. So then we see that the arrow flies across the river into this other jurisdiction, underworld. I know this much about torts. That's a trespass, right? I can tell you this that much, right? Throwing your property to someone else's land is a trespass. A couple people put those in active war. I'm like launching a javelin missile, but, never mind. But I think I'm really tired, right? I think I actually slept in the plane, so I actually felt pretty good, but it was a late night. So I think that this would definitely be a trespass of the item, right? But what's the consequence if your lost property is trespass? Does that mean the person who you throw it onto gets to own automatically? I don't think we ever actually did a case on that exact same point. Again, I told you he was the king, so it's not just the owner of Blackacre. He's the ruler of the realm. All right. So then we learn that the arrow pierces the pomegranate, and this grove of trees was owned by Dante. And this was actually very careful. If you look very carefully at the question, the arrow is inside the fruit. The arrow is inside Dante's property. So if you look at the role in Hannah against Peel, it's literally attached to the land of Dante. And that was a very subtle point. I remember a couple people last year picked up on that, which was, it wasn't obvious, but I wrote the question very carefully, right? It pierced right through the pomegranate, which was owned. So just, that's what I'm saying. You read the question, maybe read it twice. I put lots of little nooks, and those are for the attentive students who can pick up on it. All right. All right. Now we get to number 5, the next point. All right. Hercules' plan doesn't quite work out because Dante cuts the rope, so he can't wheel his arrow back. Then we find out that Persephone, who's Dante's wife, didn't know where the arrow came from. She grabs the arrow out, plucks the fruit from the tree, snacks the arrow in half. Now the question was about quieting title on the entire arrow, and there are 2 halves, which makes the question a little bit trickier because there are really 2 different answers. Or maybe there might not be, but there might be 2 answers. The first half is buried in the soil. Here, I think she wants to reclaim it, right? This is not like abandoning mislaid property. It's kind of like the buried treasure doctrine, the treasure trove almost, where she wants to sort of come back to it later. And her husband's actually the king, as it were, for those curious. But burying the land in Dante would belong to Dante. Burying the item in Dante's land makes it belong to Dante, I think. And no one ever finds the first half. But I think Dante has a stronger claim. The second half she throws in the river. No one controls the river. And if you remember, Hercules found it floating there initially. And since someone found it, it's up for grabs, right? You can't really assign ownership of an item. It just doesn't exist. A couple students I remember wrote out rationing solely. That applies to wild animals. No. Don't do the wild animal doctrine for the inanimate objects, and don't do the found lost property stuff for the wild animals. Keep them separate. Labor theory doesn't have relevance for inanimate objects. It's only for fugitive resources. Ditto, Johnson against McIntosh. Don't talk about it. That's about discovery of land, not for the discovery of, or not for the capture of wild animals, or for the finding of inanimate objects, chattel, if you will. Okay. All right. Questions at number 2. Questions at number 2. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sitting, so my peripheral vision is constrained by these beautiful plexiglass dividers. Yeah.
I have a question. I couldn't really think of like an argument for what would be a good, because she's not really the first finder, not her land.
Yeah, there's not much for her, and the reason why I put her there was just kind of like to shake up the question. Probably the best argument for Stephanie was that she found the arrow, but the response to that is under Army versus Delamery, the Hercules has a strong claim because he was a previous finder. So she has the if you want to rank them like 1, 2, 3, Persephone's at the bottom. She might be saying in the underworld. She's. Okay, so very astute question. A couple people brought that up, and I was actually afraid that people would write that because I didn't want to be a marital property question. I think I had a marital property on the rest of the exam. I didn't give you any information about what kind of marital property jurisdiction you're in. Now you might say modern, but modern property doesn't mean marital property. So my hint to you, and again, you're asking me a very good question. If I don't give you instructions in the property about marital property, it's hint I'm not asking about that. And if you go to part 2 of the exam, okay, see over here, in part 2, I'm sorry, it's a little bit small, hard to read, but I asked about marital property, which is one of the advantages to reading the exam straight through, that you'll see that, okay, this is not what he's asking. But had I told you that because look, I didn't tell you when he acquired the Grove, right? Maybe he acquired it before the marriage, in which case it would not be marital property, right? It might be a separate entity altogether. So you couldn't just assume the fact that I said he owns it means he owned it while he was married, which is the risk you make when you run that answer. I want to answer your question on its fact. Had I told you that this was actually marital property, then you'd have to go down the road of, well, Persephone owns half, right, of everything, which would make the question completely different. But I did not want people answering that question. Yeah.
I don't know if it's too far fetched, but like there's stuff like the existing arrow and I like the boat to it.
Oh yeah, improvements.
They like creating
I mean, tying a rope to the end of an arrow. I mean, that's a stretch. I'm sorry. I mean, it's not wrong, but I think you're. And I don't think it adds anything to the question either. If he's the first finder, it doesn't really matter if he improved upon it. He still has a stronger claim based on being the first one to find it. So I don't think it actually. I don't know if it's wrong, but I don't think it buys you anything. Yeah.
You don't want to talk for us to talk about how like a court were damages.
That's a torts question, which I apparently know nothing about. Right? No, I'm being serious here. I'm asking you how they acquire title on the arrow, meaning basically, was it replevin, right? It's who gets the arrow, basically. That's what I'm asking you. I mean, there might be some rare cases where damages are relevant, but that's gonna be very rare. Maybe if there's a nuisance case or something, which we didn't do nuisance next semester. So you'll do nuisance again in property too. So congratulations, you have to all over again. It's easier, I think at least. Yeah, Shadi. Right, that goes to the trespass point I mentioned a few minutes ago. I don't know that terribly matters much, because if anything, unfortunately, this is answering your question. If there was a trespass, there might be damages or trespass, but you return the arrow, right? In other words, even if you're trespassing, that doesn't mean you lose the property interest. So you might award damages for the trespass, but on the actual chattel, you return the chattel to the owner. Right? In other words, if I throw a baseball into your property and the baseball is trespassing, you could sue me for damages, but I get the baseball back. I think you could sue to recover your tool. I mean, again, you're gonna be liable for the damage of the trespass, but the owner has no stake to the tool. Right. I mean, what actually happens, and this is just a bigger point, it's something called civil asset forfeiture, criminal asset forfeiture. If you use something in the commission of a crime, right? Let's say you have a car that you're dealing drugs out of. The cops can actually seize your car in a civil or criminal proceeding, and they can sell it at an auction because it was used to facilitate a crime. So I think that's you're getting a feel, but I see your question. All right, anything else, number 2? All right, good question. You guys did your homework. You actually thought this through, which is good. Yeah, I think I would do this again where I'll let people take the exam, at least start the penultimate second class. All right, number 3, we have a mashup of leaseholds and future interest questions. I'm sure you didn't like this one very much. No. I think I told you I was going to do this because I did last year, so I wasn't surprised. But yeah, you can mix up leaseholds and future interest questions. So number 3A, it says, you got Blackacre. Blackacre from Blackacre from Zeus to Hercules for decade to decade, starting on January 1st of 2020. Identify all the present and future interests in Blackacre. And all means all, so make sure you identify them. All right, so first, Zeus gives Hercules a present interest in periodic tenancy in Blackacre. But it's unusual. It's not month to month or year to year, it's decade to decade. Which I guess when you're a Greek god, decades are no big deal, right? That's it. So it's basically the answer to this one for 3A. It's a present interest in a decade to decade periodic tendency. But that's a present interest. What's a future interest? Zeus has reversion in fee simple, right? At some point, if this periodic tendency ever comes to an end, it goes back to Zeus. Now, it might never end, right? Periodic tendencies can renew basically indefinitely as either party moves for consent to terminate. In theory, at least, there's reversion to Zeus in fee simple. All right, that's the easy one. 3B says Whiteacre from Zeus to Dante, so long as Hercules' leasehold on Blackacre continues, starting on January 1st, 2021. Comma. Then to Persephone for her discretion. Period. Identify all the present and future interests in Whiteacre. All right, so Zeus gives Dante a present interest. That much is easy. A lot of students did the lazy thing. I shouldn't say that. That's mean. Did the not correct thing, and they wrote, "Oh, it's a fee simple determinable," right? Because this was so long as, and that's just not even remotely close. Right? This is why you have to understand future interests. You can't just memorize words and say, "Oh, I know what this is," right? It's not a fee simple determinable. The future interest goes to Persephone, a third party. So the present interest is our favorite, the fee simple subject to executory interest or limitation. And that means Persephone has an executory interest. But let's be more precise. Persephone is cutting short the interest of the grantee, right? The grantee, Dante, right? So we say that Dante has a fee simple subject to Persephone's shifting executory interest. And Persephone has a shifting executory interest. But we're not done. Not done yet. Her shifting executory interest is not in fee simple. All right, make sure you go to the end of the sentence. I use this weird language, at her discretion. What the hell does that mean? And here I think you have some room to run, but I think the best answer is that it's kind of like a tenancy at will, right? So basically the future interest is in tenancy at will. So let's put it all together. I would say that Persephone has a shifting executory interest in tenancy at will, and Dante has a fee simple subject to Persephone's shifting executory interest in tenancy at will. Right, but we're still not done because Zeus has reversion in fee simple. Why? If Persephone dies, the tenancy at will terminates. If Persephone terminates her tenancy at will, it terminates. It goes back, reversion fee simple to Zeus. And why is it reversion? It goes back to the grantor after natural termination. So I'll read it again from start to finish. It's a mouthful. Dante has a present interest in fee simple, subject to Persephone's shifting executory interest and tenancy at will. Oof, that's a lot. And the Persephone has a future interest in shifting executory interest and tenancy at will. And Zeus, the king, has a future interest in reversion and fee simple. Those are your right answers. Yes, sir.
So when you were going over this in class, I remember correctly, you said that the only reversion is in term of years. That's not correct. What they gathered for all three.
I think in this case you could have reversion. You have to account for eventually the tenancy at will end. Right? Specifically, the tenancy at will can end at death. It's really the tenancy at will ends at death, and that's a natural reversion. A natural termination goes back to the there. Yeah. So if I said only term of years, I guess I was wrong. Yeah, or at least incomplete. Yeah, because the tenancy at will is rare. They don't exist often, but in this case, they can be reversion. I think it would be. Yeah. Yeah.
So whenever there's additional language, like the fee simple, subject to condition,
Mhm.
irrational language, then make it simple.
Yeah.
but there's I guess like a later clause that has the third party that ensure either the grantee or grantor. You always want to call it like a shifting or springing executory interest. Be simple, determinable, or
One more time.
so.
I'm sorry. I thought I had your question. I lost it like in the middle.
So long as purchasing leasehold on Black Acre. And so the so long as it's kind of like the durational.
It's durational language. But I have to see where the future interest is going. If it's going back to the grantor, then it is the fee simple determinable, right? Well, I want you to focus on there's 100 rules you have to follow, right? But in particular with this question, when you're deciding what kind of defeasible state it is, you have to see where the future interest is going. And here the future interest goes to a third party, so it's got to be executory interest of some sort. You got to go forwards and backwards with these questions. You can't just read them straight through, unfortunately. Someone asked me this last year. It's a very It's a very smart question, right? It's a very sharp question. I didn't give you any facts of immortality in the question, right? I'll give Jackie credit for King of the Underworld because that's within the realm of, but I didn't tell you they're immortal. So I think I mean, this is the risk. I mean, look, I can give boring exams which is nothing of interest, and then they're painful to write and they're not enjoyable to read. But the risk of doing this is, oh well, Greek gods are immortal. That way they never die. Unless I tell you that, I would not assume that. That's assuming too much. Yeah, so someone gave me an argument on that one last year. I'm like, and I gave them credit. I mean, they didn't give me an argument. They wrote on the paper like fine. I couldn't dock them points because they were not being unreasonable. They did something that was reasonable, but it was a failing of my question. And my questions aren't perfect. I mean, I've had years where I write a question and I realized the question was crap. I threw it out. I just gave them full credit. It doesn't happen often. It's happened maybe once or twice where I wrote a question and I graded through and I realized the question either lacked precision or there's some ambiguity and I just gave them full credit and then they're all happy, right? But I don't think this is one of those questions because then you're assuming facts, not evidence. All right, go with question 3B. Oh, Alex. Oh, sure, go back to it. Yeah, that's fine. That's very sharp. Yeah, I think I know what you're getting at. Yeah. No. Ugh. You were good till you got to the vested remainder part. It's true that the periodic tendency, the heir is inherited. I don't think it's called a vested remainder, right? And the reason why is because unlike a life estate will without question terminate upon death. You know it's going to happen. But the periodic tendency, given 30 days notice, you can end it early. So it definitely wouldn't be vested. And I don't think you can call it contingent either because it's not following a natural termination because it follows someone giving notice to terminate, which is not a natural thing. So it's not a remainder. I don't know what it's called. No one's ever asked me that question before, right? I don't know what you call the future interest of heirs to a periodic tendency. I have no idea, but it's not a remainder. It's got to be something else. All right, but really good question. And no one's ever asked that question before. All right, good. You guys are good. I mean, you're asking me very good questions, which is making me feel comfortable at the exam. I'm not like panicking. Yes, Abby.
Clarify about reversion, because you just mentioned it about reversion. So a reversion, even in the leasehold where notification is necessary, can there still be?
Right. So the difficult. I knew you were going to ask me this. You're all smart. Right. So the tenancy at will ends on death. That's a natural termination. That's reversion. It would not be natural upon giving of notice. So I don't know what you call something that's a reversion for one purpose, not for another. I don't know what that's called.
So like in.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're asking me.
30 days, so like when.
I think the best name is reversion. I don't know what you would call.
We can call it a reversion.
I would because it can follow after the natural death, which was I think was Zach's question a few minutes ago. But if it's only after periodic, right? After periodic, it cannot be reversion, right? And this is why I told Alex I don't think it could be remainder either. right? Because with the periodic tendency, it only terminates upon notice. It does not terminate upon death. So, well, no, the first one's a tendency at will. Right, but at her discretion.
Periodic tendency.
Hold on.
Periodic tendency, because the D has a reverse.
Present interest, decade to decade. Was this your question, Zach? Yeah. No, periodic tendency would not end at. I don't know. I'm not sure. Would not be natural, would it? Mm-mm. No, because that's one that matches with the fee civil subject and something. You know, I think Abby and to maybe Alex and to Zach. I'll be honest. I've seen books, and I don't have in front of me because I don't have my records here. This is not like the counting the days in the calendar. I've seen books call. You guys are laughing at me. I've seen books call this reversion, and I never really thought to challenge it on the grounds that you're challenging it. But now that you're saying this, you have a fair point. It may be, and maybe this is for Alex and Abby and Zach and a few others, that when you get to leaseholds, that they're not so strict about what's reversion and what's remainder, right? Because it's got to be called something, right? It's got to be called some future interest. And I swear, if anyone has their book in front of me, I think they. I don't have my book here, unfortunately. If anyone flips through it and they can tell me, I'm pretty sure they would describe the future interest of the landlord as reversion. And I'm pretty sure I saw that in there, but maybe that doesn't meet the rules of what reversion actually is. So I don't know. I looked up after class. I really don't know. I'm not sure.
All the reversions are identical.
You're so funny. I don't know. Yes, if you want to call it the reversion for exam purpose, I won't mock it because it's not. We only have two names, reversion and remainder, right? And if it's neither of those, I don't know what it is. This is Alex's question a minute ago. I don't know what it would be called. It'd be called something else. Oh, you're funny. Quasi reversion. I'm gonna look this up later and I'll get back to you. I don't have an answer for you. I'm not sure. But I'm like pretty sure the book uses reversion remainder for the future interest after leaseholds. Am I wrong about that? Does that sound familiar? You're reading? Yeah. All right. Well then I'll figure this out later. But if you want to write reversion in your paper, I won't knock you points. How about that? Okay. So, look, I gotta say, this class has been putting me to my paces. It's good though, and it shows that you understand the rules to an extent that when it's not consistent, you say, "Josh, right? So this is good." And think if I had more than 4 hours of sleep, I'd have a good answer for you. But this is the best I can do for right now. But I will check this up later. Amari, you're flipping the books. Anything any on point or no? Okay, that's fine. I'll leave you alone. All right, so we do 3C. All right, see if I screw this one up also. I actually might actually. No, I think it actually still works. Okay, so let's do 3C. Greenacre from Zeus to Persephone for life. By the way, no one flagged that on last year's exam to the point you're raising. So just you're doing stuff that wasn't even on the exam last year, so it's good. Greenacre from Zeus to Persephone for life, comma. But if Persephone terminates her lease on Whiteacre, comma, then Greenacre goes to Hercules. Identify all the present and future interests in Greenacre. Yeah, it's really bothering. What do you call the future interest after tendency at will? Because it's kind of reversion, but it's kind of not. Oh, it's bothering me now. The next review session is even worse. So okay, anyway, 3C. My brain's spinning as quickly as it can. All right. So 3C. So we start off. Zeus gives Persephone life estate. Okay, comma. That's the easy part. That one's I think is fairly clear. But then it's a weird one, right? It's a life estate thought by the but if. It says but if Persephone terminates her lease, then Greenacre goes to Hercules. You might be tempted to say this is a fee simple subject to condition subsequent in light of the but if. But it's not. At least I don't think it is, right? Persephone is a life estate. And the very definition of a life estate is it's going to end upon death. It cannot be terminated earlier. It cannot be divested earlier, right? You can cut short the remainder, but not the life estate. So I think one way of reading this, and this is one I think is probably the better answer, not the only answer, but the way that I would probably answer if I was in your shoes, is that we basically strike out the stuff after the comma, right? It's irrelevant. I'm going to tell you the other answer in a minute of how you would probably go otherwise, right? But I think you would strike out everything after the comma and say it's just a life estate. In which case you just have a what do you call it? A life estate followed by reversion in fee simple. Now I'll give you the other side, right? Let's say you didn't want to go that route. Let's say you actually want to try to give meaning to all the language. What you would basically have to do, where's the 3C, is you say it's based on life estate subject to divestment. All right, because it's not. I know you want to say it's a life estate subject to condition subsequent, but that's not a thing. So I think you'd have to just use the sort of general umbrella of it's subject to divestment. And because the future interest is going to Hercules, you say Hercules has a future interest, but and it would, and I know you want to call it a shifting executory interest, but you can't. The entire concept in executory interest must follow a fee simple, right? It's a fee simple subject to an executory interest followed by executory interest. But here we have a life estate, and you can't really have an executory interest on life estate. That's not a thing. Which is why I like my first answer better. It's easier. You just strike out the language, right? If you actually try and give meaning to each phrase, you run into so many roadblocks like that's not a thing, and that's not a thing, and that doesn't exist. And it's like, what the hell's the answer? So I think the best answer is just a life estate followed by reversion. I would just cut it off. But I know why people try to do the other thing. Shadi, then. Yeah. You cannot revoke a life estate. That's correct. That's correct.
So you said it's a life estate, part of it.
But if, yeah.
It's unenforceable.
That's my answer. That's what I think is a better answer. Right? Because the entire idea of a life estate is it will last the duration of life, period. There's no like variables. Yeah, Zach and Jackie?
So the language where it says, then it goes to Hercules. I heard that as being a fee simple, like why it's a fee shifting. If it's like not really specific, like it's.
Oh, I see. So you said after the life estate, Hercules gets a fee simple? Is that what you're saying?
Just goes there. So I was like, oh, that could be fee simple. So if it's like that broad, how do you want to read it? Because it kind of go both ways, at least like how I look at it.
But that comes after the condition. So what'd you write for your answer, Zach? Give me start to finish.
I heard as goes to Hercules fee simple.
Okay.
After the life estate, then it'd be shifting, that would be best for maker. But because you said to read and the life estate, that can't happen.
Okay, so when I say strike out, let me just. What I would do. Hold on one second. Oh, I see. So you would say Greenacre from Zeus to Persephone for life, comma. We strike this out. You said Hercules has remainder?
Yeah, if it's a fee simple, that's how you see it.
1 second. This is your version, be simple. Okay. Now I remember what happened, right? So it depends what we're striking out, right? If we strike out everything after the comma, so can you see what I'm highlighting here on the screen? Okay, I think now I see your question, right? If we just put a period there, right, after word life, then I think we all agree that Zeus has reversion if he's simple, right? Now, I think what Zach's saying is, what if we just strike out this clause, right? Let's say we just, I can't change the screen, but we delete this clause, then there'd be a remainder in fee simple for Hercules. I think that's right. It depends when we think striking out, what we're striking out. I thought, and again, I'm open to having different answers, that because this entire but if business is void, this thing that follows the condition is void as well. So I would just strike everything out and basically end the sentence: Greenacre from Zeus to Persephone for life, period, and then reversion to Zeus. Alex? But who has the present interest in fee simple subject to that springing executor interest? In other words, the springing executor interest must be paired with a fee simple subject to an executor interest, and I don't see there's any fee simple subject to executor. No, Alex, I get what you're saying. It's entirely intuitive because this does function like a springing executor interest, but you need to have a present interest in fee simple subject to shifting executor interest. Who would that be? Would that be Hercules? Do you think Hercules had a fee simple subject, or in other words, who has the present interest in fee simple subject to the springing executor interest? Oh, I see. So you said it'd be a reversion in fee simple subject to spring executory interest. Okay, so let's talk this through, right? So let's say, so once Persephone dies, she can't terminate anything, right? Or, oh, actually, I remember, I thought of this part, right? In the prior question on Whiteacre, um, right? So the prior question, this is the tense. Okay, now I remember what I did. Okay. So in the prior question in 3B, we said there was a tenancy at will, right? A tenancy at will terminates upon death or upon providing sufficient notice, right? So if Persephone dies, then the life estate's over, right? But let's say during Persephone's life, she, um, let's say during Persephone's life, she gives notice to terminate Whiteacre, right, during her life. I still think Greenacre stays with her. You can't cut it short of a life estate. I think you can't. Once you say that Persephone's a life, once you say Persephone's a life estate, she will have us the day she dies, and you can't end it a minute earlier. I think that's where I keep coming back to. That's why I strike that condition out. And if you strike, and now this goes back to Zach's question. If you strike out this clause, you also strike out the clause that follows it. It can't just be yes, right? I don't think you can just strike out this but if because it's everything that follows it. So does that make sense, Alex? I know why you put the springing, but you have to match with the present interest in example subject to shifting executive interest, and I don't see it in this question. I'm not sure how you get to that. That I want to make sure I answered Alex's question. It was a good question. But what was the present interest? The present interest was a life estate. Let me write that up just so I can look at it. What's it again? One second. I'm not saying you're wrong. I don't. I know better than say that. Let's see. I think I have it in my notes somewhere. Okay, the heirs of B. Um, I'm not finding it now, and I don't want to say Alex is wrong because I don't know. I don't better to do that. Here we go. Future interest reviews. Let's see. I just found it. No, it's true. Okay. Oh, I gave you option 1, option 2. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Option 1 was better. So option 1. All right. Now I remember it. Yeah. Okay. I don't think I liked option 2, but okay. Yeah. Okay. Now I got you. Okay. So this is it. This was from class 15, if you remember, all the way back from 3 weeks ago. To A for life. It's a review session for me as well. To A for life, then to the heirs of B. B is alive. So I think okay. So A has a present interest in life estate, and the heirs of B have future interest and contingent remainder, and O is future reversion. Option 2, A has a present interest in life estate, O is a future interest reversion, if he's simple subject. Yeah, well, reversion. Yeah, I don't like that answer, but that would work for this one. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I now I see. Yeah, it's similar. I don't know if it's exactly the same, but what you would say, going back to this question. So read again what you had, please.
I said, Persephone has a present interest in life estate remainder.
Good. Okay, good. Now I got it. The reason why I don't know if that works in this question is if you strike out this, then you also strike out the rest of the sentence, right? And this is the same question exactly. Now I got you. Okay. I don't think you can only strike out this part. Do you agree? If you strike out the rest of the sentence, then what you wrote doesn't quite work. Okay. Now the question is, can you only strike out this part? I think you have to strike out the entire sentence. So you're exactly correct in this example from class 15. I gave this another option, which I didn't like as much, but it only worked because there was nothing to strike out.
But it's in general.
Yes, you can have, if now I get it. If you have a reversion in fee simple, that fee simple itself will be subject to executory interest because it's following the death of A. I'm sorry. Well, it's a fee simple of some kind. It will be a fee simple at some point. In other words, A will die with certainty, right? So it will go back in reversion and fee simple to O, guaranteed at some point. And then that will be a present interest that itself will be subject to an executory interest. Good question. All right. No, you're right. I don't think what you said works for this question because of what you strike out, but you're right in general. Because there would be at some point a present interest in fee simple that is subject to a future shifting executory interest, springing. Yes. All right. There were a bunch of hands. I don't know who was first. Okay, I'll call on you. Yeah. Yes. The same way, walk through why you did what you did, because what that lets me do is every year when I write a future interest question, I get answers I didn't anticipate. Happens every year. I'm like, oh wow, that's good. I was like, oh, I'm gonna give you that credit. Right? If you just write fee simple reversion, whatever it is, and don't tell me why you're not getting yourself full credit, because I don't know why you're doing what you're doing. Shadi, then I think you over there. Yeah.
Kind of touched on it, so, from the midterm, you said that the reversion or remainder explained on.
Yes.
That's 20 words per explanation.
It's okay. These are words well spent. These are words well spent. It's okay. It can be done. Yeah.
So for question C, I read it as not cutting anything out.
Hold on. Let me go back to where we're looking at the thing. It's all right. Look, I am happy to discuss future interest questions till I'm on the floor sleeping. Okay, go ahead. Which might happen in about 90 minutes. Yeah.
Not cutting it out because it's going to naturally terminate anyway out of death. So,
But it could terminate earlier than a death as well, though. Right? The idea of the tenancy at will, and this is we talked about before, upon death or upon sufficient notice, 30 days, whatever the rules in the jurisdiction. So it's not. This is why from the question before, I can't remember who asked me. My brain doesn't work anymore, right? What do you call the future interest after tenancy at will? It's kind of reversion, maybe not. A little bit country, a little bit rock and roll. I don't know what you call it, right? Donnie Marie, whatever, right? To answer your question, I don't know if it even does. Okay, we're good. What else? I got another class for this. We're gonna roll. Yes, Jackie.
So if the state, you can't divest it.
I don't think you can. Otherwise, then it's not a life estate. It's something else, right? It. Now, I think what you could have done if you wanted to be a complete, if you want to actually fight my question, you say it's not a life estate at all. It is in fact a fee simple subject condition subsequent with an additional condition that terminates upon death. Right. So you could, I think you, I don't know if I would have did this, but I anticipated someone might do it. You would say Persephone is a fee simple subject to a condition subsequent that terminates upon her death. So it's actually not a life estate at all. You wouldn't call it that. And then it would make sense. I'm sorry, it would actually be a fee simple subject to a shifting executory interest to Hercules. Hercules would have the shifting executory interest, but Zeus might have a reversion upon her death. It would be a mess. So I don't encourage you to do it, but you could write it that way.
But for people that needed, someone to divest the life estate, why did you give them? Did you give them credit? And
I wish I remembered. I think because look, I don't think we ever actually talked about in class about this exact issue. Can you divest a life estate? But I think how I understood teaching it is it can't. It's ending at life period. So look, I have to be generous with grading. They're not everyone's as smart as you all, right? And so no, it's true. I have to. If I graded like a stickler, I couldn't have a curve because you'd all fail, right? It's. I'm kidding. Right. But I have to have to be generous with partial credit because not everyone sees all the issues. I mean, look, every year it's a natural curve. I don't have to do anything. You are all distributed evenly. It makes my life easy, right? No, it's in any group there's a natural distribution. It's a fact of nature. It exists in any group that people are naturally distributed. That's why curves work. I don't have to force it. Like I think my Civ Pro exam, I got a 65 and it was an A plus. It was the hardest exam I've ever taken in my life. Hardest. I got 65. It gave me an A plus. That's not my exam, right? People get in the 80s and 90s. So, anyways, that was the fact pattern. I still to this day remember it. It was a car accident on a bridge between two states involving some federal vehicle that had like federally insured bonds in the trunk, and just like it was just this. And the suit was filed in some obscure jurisdiction, and the professor gave us like the California Rules of Civil Procedure, which we'd never been seen before to apply. Uh, I still have nightmares about it, just even many years later. Anyway, so you're welcome. Let's go on. I want to finish. We have 20 minutes left. Actually, 10 minutes left. But do you have class after this at 2? Shit. Okay. Shoot. Sorry. Look at me. I'm okay. It's gonna be a fun second class. All right. Sorry, YouTube. We'll have to move a little quickly. All right. Let's do question 4. Of course, it involves counting days. Of course. And actually, I don't know if you noticed, I actually revised the answer, the memo, because there was an error in the memo. So I actually revised it this morning after I got to the office. All right, so let's do question 4. Okay, question 4 continues from number 3. Analyze the following 2 transactions. On January 1st, 2021, Hercules gives Zeus notice to vacate Blackacre, period. When will Hercules' leasehold on Blackacre terminate? So if you remember, this was a decade-to-decade lease. And what is the relevant notice period to terminate such a tenancy? I think go one of 2 ways, right? You could say that, well, decade to decade is kind of like year to year, and therefore use a notice period of half of a 1-year term, which is 6 months. So to terminate 6 months will be not June 1st, but May 30th. Thank you. I changed it on the answer key. Changed it to May 30th of 2020. But here they didn't give notice till January 1st of 2021, which means you add an entire full year period, and the lease ends on December 31st of 21. The second approach, which is I think maybe even better, is you go the common law rule, which is half of the 1-year period. I'm sorry, half the period length, which is 5 full years of notice. So to terminate by December 31st of 2029, it's not January 1st, it's December 31st of 24. So you go 2025, 26, 27, 28, 29, and then you can move out by the end of 2029. So there's basically a full decade of rent that's owed. All right, question on 4A. I I think I can count now my days. I was in my office, guys, fixing it before. Then someone would yell at me. Oh, you guys you're catching errors that have been in the syllabus for like a lot, which means other students didn't catch me, which is a testament. It's good, right? It's a sign when you can show the professor they're wrong. That means you're really on top of your game. It's positive. Uh-oh. What I do now. I think the second one's actually better, but I accept both of them. I mean, the question is when will the leasehold terminate? I want a date, so you got to pick a date. Pick one you think's better. I think the second one's better. What do you think? The second one? Yeah, I think that's better. Yeah. All right, I got like 10 minutes left. Let's go through this. Number B, number B. My goodness, letter B. That's not going to be good. On January 1st. See, I could have done this by Zoom. I was like, oh no, I did Zoom for a year. I don't want to do Zoom ever again. So I came here to be with you all because I did not. I could have done this by Zoom very easily. I could have just taken like a 5 p.m. flight and just both classes by Zoom, but I'm here. Okay. On January 31st, Zeus gives Persephone notice to vacate Whiteacre. When will terminate? All right, so this was the crazy one with the tenancy at will, right? When Hercules' leasehold on Blackacre terminates, then Dante loses his present interest. At that point, Persephone has a tenancy at will, right? With a tenancy at will, it can end upon death, or it can end with giving sufficient notice. Notice was given on January 1st. I think I got this right. 30 days notice would be January 31st. So that would be the date of termination. Now, there's a wrinkle here with Garner v. Garish, because at common law, when the tenant has the right to terminate a tenancy at will, then the landlord must have the same right. If the parties didn't reach that term in their lease, there's an implication they imply the term by operation of law. Garner, the New York case, reversed the common law, but we are in Olympus, which is a common law jurisdiction. So we follow the common law rule. So I think January 31st is the right answer here. Am I good? All right, I think I'll actually end on time then. All right, good. Let's do number 5. This is the so-called policy question, which is very broad. It says a common law. Courts generally favor the reading of leases based on precise words of that sign. Hello, YouTube. Doing a show today. At common law, courts favor the reading of leases based on the precise words the parties chose. In the modern era, courts generally favor the leases based on the intentions of the parties, even if those intentions conflict with the words chosen. Discuss the advantages and disadvantages of the common law and modern approaches. There's a lot you can go here. In fact, even one of the questions in this exam involves striking out a term. So I mean, there's a lot you can go here. A couple cases you want to talk about versus Hannon versus Dush. This was the case about the English rule versus the American rule versus the British rule, about actual possession. Legal access versus actual possession. Garner against Garish is about implying terms on behalf of the landlord to terminate. Ernst against Condit. This was the go-kart case, you remember, where they kind of struck out terms. The party said, oh, it's a sublease. It's a sublease. Never mind, it's an assignment, right? They said words don't matter. Kendall versus Ernest Pestana was a California case that had the courts implying a reasonableness provision when you have an assignment clause. Summer versus Crydell. This was a case from New Jersey with the fish, with the law student who had the fiance break up with him, and the court implied a duty to mitigate, even though the lease itself had no such language. There are like a dozen cases you could talk about here. But again, try to keep it to 200 words roughly, which will keep you on track. I think I'm done. Questions? I won't curse again, I promise. That was a slip. I'm really sorry. I feel bad about that one. Yes, Shadi. 4A, okay.
So go with in 5 years,
Right.
And it would be too late to not that.
Correct. Well, he gave notice January 1st of 2021. And I think what that would mean is Right. So hold on. Let me go back. No, he gave notice. When did he give notice? On January 1st. 4A. Okay. On January 1st of 2021, Hercules gave Zeus notice to vacate. Yeah, I think it'd be a full another year, right? Yeah, I mean a full another decade. Yeah, I think so. I think that's right. Wait, hold on. My brain's hurting. Okay, let me before I do this. Okay, Hercules had a decade at least. It began on what date? It was on January 1st of 2020, right? We're on Whiteacre. Oh, we're on A. So this is Blackacre. Oh no, it began on January 1st of 2020, right? And he gave notice on January 1st of 2021. That'll be well in advance of 5 years. Yeah, so no, he's fine. Right? Yeah, no. If he needs to give 5 years notice, he would need to give notice by what did I say, December 31st of 2024, and he gave notice on January 1st of 2021. Oh, he's well in advance. Yeah, he's good. Yeah. Don't trip me up. Not today. Abby.
So December 31st, 2020.
Correct. Because he gave notice well in advance. He gave notice like 3 or 4 years more than he had to. Section 8 is gonna be fun. All right. What else? Going once? Going twice? Good luck. Thank you for a fun semester. Thank you. Thank you. I'll see you all next time. Thank you.